Welcome to Magic.ai, the operating system for hospitality. At Magic, we know an operating system is more than just software and systems. It's about people, because hospitality is nothing without them. So supporting the hospitality community is our number one goal.
I think there needs to be more of a support system. Like, you have to love this business and you have to love every aspect of it, including sharing tribal knowledge on what is successful and also tribal knowledge of what is a failure.
Founded by lifelong experts, we're building the place where everyone in hospitality, from seasoned pros to first-timers, can gather, share, and grow together. Plus, we're crafting scalable tools and AI-supported software to boost your business. Dive into our vibrant community platform packed with meaningful conversations and robust tools and templates designed just for you. Need more? Our custom software solutions have got you covered. From recruiting and staffing to digital playbooks and dashboards, we're working on building a unique hub of resources unlike any other. Magic is your single point of origin for important conversations, accessible tools, valuable insights, and more. Join us at magic.ai. The evolution of hospitality is here.
All these funds, we're seeing it all right now too. People donating big quantities of money to, Red Cross. But that, to me, is never going to get into the hands of anybody in the food and beverage industry. That's never going to affect a drive-through worker or a farmer or a cook or a waiter or anybody. And so we'll always do some kind of fundraising effort for the MS Society, but our focus really changed right then. And then the next year it was like, we granted $100,000 out. And then the next year it was like $200,000. And then 2020 comes rolling around and we granted $6 million.
Midwest-raised James Beard award-winning chef Chris Shepard has helped change the landscape of the Houston culinary scene since opening Underbelly in 2012. Thanks to Chris's vision and passion, Underbelly was a James Beard Award semifinalist for Best New Restaurant, was named one of Best New Restaurants in the country by Bon Appetit and Esquire, and was named one of 38 essential restaurants in America by Eater. Chris was named one of the 10 best new chefs in America by Food and Wine in 2013, and was then awarded the 2014 James Beard Award for Best Chef Southwest. Chris's first cookbook, Cook Like a Local, Flavors That Will Change the Way You Cook and See the World, was published by Clarkson Potter in September 2019 and was nominated for a 2020 James Beard Foundation Book Award. Last but hardly least, Chris's foundation, Southern Smoke, has distributed more than $12.7 million directly to people in the food and beverage industry in need via emergency relief programs.
Restaurants forever like, man, costs are high, labor's high, but I don't want to raise my prices. And so that's why people are closing, because they can't afford to do it, because the restaurants themselves don't want to raise the price. And it's like, you can't take the hickey for everybody, man. Just be enough for your own people. Be there for your team. Be there for them. Be the leader that they need to see that's like, oh man, these people are doing it the right way for the right reasons.
Chef Chris Shepard, welcome to Restaurant Ready.
Thanks for having me.
Of course. What an incredible bio. I love it. It's so cool for me when we do these things to read people's bios, because I generally know the folks we're interviewing and I generally know their achievements, but to see it in front of me is like just so incredible when I think about what my friends have been able to do. It's just awesome. So I'm so psyched you're here.
Thank you. Oh, thank you for having me. I feel like we should cut a lot of that out, but yeah.
It's all good. Listen, it's all
I just listened to it. I'm like, nah. Oh my God.
It's all part of the DNA. I love it. Well, I want to say first, for those people that are listening or watching this, I am in my garage, so it's a little bit of a unique podcast today. I've got some contractors working in the house that are banging away, and I had no peace, so I came out here and sat in the truck. So that's why the interesting set here for me. But Chris, I want to toot your horn for a second here, as if I haven't kind of already, just by reading your bio. You have been a just stalwart institution in the culinary world for over 15 years, I think, and the past decade has seen you really evolve, I think, as a chef and an entrepreneur. I know you from working alongside you with the James Beard Foundation. And when we met, you were just kind of this larger than life personality that to me, I think represented like the absolute best that, Texas and the heart of America had to offer. Big, bold flavors, unabashedly comforting American food, but done very, very well, right? With great technique, a tip of the hat always given to like local and artisan producers, seasonality. In so many ways, I think I felt like we were and are kind of cut from the same cloth, right? Like your approach really reminded me of my own in so many ways, just the Texas version, if you will. I think, all of this without even mentioning that you have an electric smile that lights up the room, incredible enthusiasm and zest for life that's just like unescapable. And you have this true burning love for hospitality and the community that it represents. What a like awesome career you've had. And I'd love you to tell us a little bit about how you view like your own personal evolution as a chef and a business owner and a leader for our industry.
Well, I just always feel that no matter what we do, we just can make people better. Whether it be the community that we're in or just the teams that we have, or it's just always showing like that's what hospitality is, right? It's always showing love and showing respect. And I think if we can all just figure that out, how do we take care of each other, then everything else falls in place, and whether it be through supporting a farmer or supporting a cook or supporting a restaurant or supporting, an industry, right? I think that if we all have that same truth and love in it, that makes the world a little bit easier to get through, makes a happier
Amen.
place, happier staff, happier people. It's way too easy to smile and it's way too hard to frown. So.
And you've like embodied this kind of idea that hospitality is not just for the folks that come into our restaurants and our establishments, but hospitality is a tenet by which we should be projecting inward to our own industry, right? And that I think in itself is like kind of what, when I think about you, it's kind of like what you embody,
It's like I always walk around just like, you good? You good? You good? You good? And people are like, I need you to quit asking me that. I'm like, but I'm not going to, because I need to know, I need to know you're okay. Like, if there's anything you need, you thirsty? You hungry? What do you need? Like, I got it. Like, so it's, I don't know. My wife gets a little frustrated with me at times because she's like, when we go out to eat, that it takes me 25 minutes to leave the restaurant because
you got to say goodbye to everybody
on your way out.
I literally walk around and I say goodbye. I go back to the dish pit, have time to talk to prep cooks and like high five the cooks, the waiters, the valet, like everybody. It's just, everybody needs to know that you care. Because there's so many times in the restaurant business that when you're working that you just feel like, man, people don't care what we do. They just come in, they eat, they pay, they leave. And it's like, no, that's not true. People do care. And they do make that memory. They may not remember the food, they may not remember the service, but they remember the experience. So that's what we need to focus on, is the experience.
I also think if you're in the back of house, it can sometimes be hard to see the impact that your food is having on guests if it isn't an open kitchen and you're not seeing them enjoy it, right? You could be in the back of the house and working away all night and not really feeling that connection that you're bringing to the guest,
Yeah, I think everybody needs to feel a little bit of that joy. It's like we got into this, right? Because it's instant gratification, right? I don't need to wait for the spreadsheet to go through or my tax evaluation of your whatever, that's why I don't do people's taxes. I don't understand it. But like, it's more about like, you do this because you get that instant feeling and it's good and it's right. And so it's just nice when people express that to you.
Yep.
So if you could revisit yourself in your early days at Brennan's or even later at your own group at Underbelly, how would you prepare yourself for the road ahead? There have obviously been some ups and downs, openings and closings, and eventually your decision to focus a lot of your efforts on Southern Smoke Foundation. What would you have liked to tell your younger self?
Do what you're doing. Do it exactly the way you did it. Right? If I could go back, I wouldn't change a damn thing. Mainly because I've learned so much about myself. I've learned so much about my community. I've learned so much about people. I'm glad that when I was at Brennan's that I took the 7 years in the kitchen, but then also took 2 years to run the wine program and come out to the front of the house and understand wine and food and service and everything. I'm glad that I went and interviewed then with a company. My chef was like, my general manager was like, hey, man, you've been here, 8-9 years. Like, maybe you should go listen and see what else is out there. And he sent me to this interview, and they looked at me and they're like, you've been there for 9 years. You're not going to make anything of yourself. Just keep staying there. And I was like, heard that. And so at some point I decided to make the change myself. And then it all just it is what it is now. Right. I'd like to go back and have that conversation with the people that told me I wouldn't amount to anything. So,
yeah.
There's one of those things
really,
you just got to believe in yourself. Right. And that's the thing is I wouldn't change anything. Some of the things that were hard, you need to go through that. Right. Closing a restaurant's one of the hardest things, but making the decision to do that is one of the hardest things. But I think you really live when you do, right? Because well, hey man, that just wasn't the right time and right place. Like I could go back and open up other things that I've had in the past that would probably crush again. But I also know that that was somewhere a time and a place when that was perfect. Like Underbelly, people are always like, I miss that. I'm like, that was a time and place. It was 7 years and it was awesome, but it needed to turn into Georgia James so we could evolve. So I could evolve as a person.
So even the hard, or you would say that the hard things taught you lessons that you then brought to your next thing. So without those hard lessons or challenges along the way, you wouldn't be who you are today or where you are today.
100%. I don't think anything that happened to me over my career would I look as a failure, right? I never look at anything as a failure. I look at it as a learning experience and wow, man, you know what? I learned how to do that now. I know what not to do, or I know what to do. I know what I should look at. I know what I shouldn't focus my time on. And I think you learn that, and you can't do that without having done it. So
it's so true.
Because if everything you do is look at this, and then all of a sudden you don't ever have those experiences in life where you wouldn't know how to deal with a lot of things, right? So having a conversation with the staff about, hey man, we're going to shut this down. We're going to turn it into this. We're going to do that. Hey man, I'm gonna quit cooking, quit running restaurants. I'm gonna go find other stuff to do. There's just you only get this time once, right? And I think we all forget that. We only are on this earth one time that we know of, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? We're here for a finite amount of time. Love what you do and be proud of what you're doing, and that's about all you need to do.
Yep. And it feels kind of like around the same time as you were navigating, some of the challenges for the restaurant group that were really COVID driven, which so many people went through. You were also kind of morphing into this new version of yourself, right? Where your focus became less about the growth of concepts in the group, but really a growth of your own humanity. And you were finding new ways to give back and to engage with, our community and hospitality in meaningful ways. Tell us a little bit about Southern Smoke and the work that you guys do.
Yeah. So, back in 2014, I started looking at, after food, wine, after the beard, after all this, I was like, how do we give back to our community in a way that makes sense? And, I was like, there's either one I can do or the other that one makes sense, one makes absolutely no sense, but it meant something to me. And that was I wanted to save Battleship Texas, right? And it was sitting in the water in the middle of nowhere that was just rotting out. And I was like, what if we did this? My wife looked at me, she's like, no. She's like, that makes no sense to anybody but you. I was like, yeah, but I like seeing it. And that's kind of cool. Nobody else is going to do it. And now it's gone. So, but we really made the right decision. Is I wanted to put people through culinary school because I knew how hard it was and how expensive it can be. And so we did that for a year. We raised a bunch of money, put somebody through school. And then one of my old sommeliers partners asked me if we could do a dinner to raise money for the MS Society. And I was like, yeah, why? And he was like, well, I was diagnosed with MS this week. And we had just lost a chef, death by suicide. that was diagnosed with MS and lost use of his hands, and nobody knew. And then one day we all found out. And so Antonio said, I want to be the face of MS. I want people to check on me. I want people to know what's going on. I was like, yeah, absolutely. So we decided to throw a little party in the backyard of the restaurant. I called Aaron Franklin and Sean Brock and Rodney Scott, asked if they'd come cook for about 300 people. And then mayor's department was like, nah, man. I was like, can we just shut down the sidewalks? And like, we're going to shut down all the streets. We're going to fence it in. We're going to give you our stage. We're going to give you all the infrastructure. And I was like, what the fuck just happened? And I had to call them all back. I was like, hey, man, we're going to do this for 1,000. And they're all like, no problem. It's just no problem, whatever. I was like, okay. And the goal was to raise $100,000 for the MS Society. And that first year we raised $181,000. And then year 2, $284,000. And year 3, Hurricane Harvey came through our city. And it really, it shook us all up because it affected areas that had never been affected. It affected families and people that had, you see these places like, that's 1,000-year floodplain. And we just crushed that. And it's like, all right, and so there was a lot of people who were affected in a lot of different ways. And so, as much as like the Red Cross and J.J. Watt and the Mayor's Fund, all these funds that happened, right? All these funds, we were seeing it all right now too. People donating big quantities of money to, Red Cross. But that to me is never going to get into the hands of anybody in the food and beverage industry. That's never going to affect a drive-through worker at a fast food restaurant or a farmer that lost an entire crop or their pigs or whatever, or a cook or a waiter or anybody. And so we looked at our foundation. We had the ability to take on applications, go through a verifying committee, and then go through an awards committee. And so we blanketed our city with flyers and restaurants, just all the restaurants. We took on 220 applications, which doesn't seem like a whole lot. And it seemed like a ton at that point in time.
It feels like a ton to me.
And we granted 139 families $500,000. And so at that point, I was like, we just have to keep this going. And so I was like, we'll always do some kind of fundraising effort for the MS Society, always. But our focus really changed right then. And then the next year it was like, we granted $100,000 out. And then the next year it was like $200,000. And then 2020 comes rolling around and we granted $6 million. So like, yeah.
Where did that money come from?
You know what? Right at the beginning, right before, I would say February, like I got a call from the Houston Texans. And they're like, hey, we want to know more about your foundation. I was like, all right. And anyway, we just hired our second employee for the foundation in into January of 2020. And I was like, why are we doing this? Like, why do we need another person? And she's still with us to this day, which is great. But the Texans called me and they said, well, we got a feeling. And I was like, all right, well, so they granted us like 50,000. And then like everything shut down. And then within 3 weeks, that 220 applications, it seemed like a lot. 36,000 applications come in. 36,000. And so we hired 40 caseworkers, all like waiters, busser, like bartenders, owners, managers. And they just kind of started that process of like triaging applications. And, and then Restaurant Workers Community Foundation started, they would give us half of everything that they raised because they knew that what we were doing was we don't have a lot of overhead, so your dollar just goes a lot further with Southern Smoke. And so we could just fund. And then people, of course, across the country were very kind, very generous, and just started like taking care because they couldn't go to restaurants, so they wanted to take care of restaurants. And so Dave Chang was the first one to ever win Celebrity Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, and he donated his $1 million to Southern Smoke. And so it just started, really going fast and furious. And in 2018, we had all the chefs together. And I had a closed door lunch. It was just right after the passing of Anthony Bourdain and some other friends. And we looked around and said, we can make a change. We need to figure out what this change is. And we decided it was mental health. And so there's like one shining light that came from, I think there's multiple shining lights that came from pandemic. I'm not going to say one. I think there's multiple ones. That I was working with Mental Health America, looking to figure out a way to gain access to free mental health care in for the food and beverage industry. And they saw at the University of Houston, their psychology department, their kid, the PhD students needed physical hours to graduate, and they were not getting their physical hours. And so they connected us. And so we basically now then started this application process to where you can apply for financial assistance or mental health care. And so in June of 2020, we figured out a way that we could give access to anybody in the food and beverage industry in the state of Texas free mental health care. So that was a big thing for me personally. And now we're in 10 states and DC, where we basically fund psychology departments across the country. We have a very strong curriculum that we go by, so it's the same care that's across the country. But yeah, we have 2 universities in Texas. We're in Louisiana, California, Illinois, New York. We have 3 universities in New York that we work with. Massachusetts, Virginia, DC, Tennessee, South Carolina. I think that's 10. Probably missing one, but
that's incredible.
Yeah. And so anybody can apply for financial relief, but also mental health care. And so what they do is they get, we have 2 things that we go by: 30 hours in the food and beverage industry. Doesn't have to be a one job, 6 months minimum. So at that point, they can get rolled into one of the programs and they get 20 free sessions or 6 months of care. So, and then like the university, like NYU is our partner there. After you go through the 20 sessions, anybody that graduates the Southern Smoke program gets $15 sessions for life.
Wow.
So that's kind of how we're tending it is the end goal, like what happens after,
So obviously addressing mental health challenges in the industry is one major part of Southern Smoke. But there are 4 pillars on the website that the other 3 include covering challenging cost of living for hospitality workers, extending your reach to the families of those working in hospitality, and what you call expanding our expertise, which is to say deepening your influence in areas outside of your own. How did Southern Smoke identify these needs in the hospitality industry? And can you give some examples of work that you've done other than with mental health?
We do so many different things, like as far as like financial assistance, like, and I'll be honest with you, like I am the spokesman. I'm not a staff member, for sure. Like I'm not on payroll. I don't know half the shit that happens. And we started it this way because at the very beginning in 2017, we need to be very clear that I never saw anybody's application or who applies. So I don't know all the scenarios because, there's so many cooks and people, like, especially in this city, when it happened, it was like, I don't want Chris knowing my scenarios. And it's like, So we just leave me out. I know absolutely nothing when it comes to like day to day, other than we're taking care of people. And somebody says, hey, this happens. Okay, cool. But I generally find out my information when someone walks up to me on the street and says, thank you so much. You got me through this. Like that happened 2 nights ago when someone was like, we had 2 houses fall on our true trees fall on our house during the derecho, and you guys really squared us away and got us back to it. And so those are the scenarios that I hear. How they do their pillars, how the team does it. Man, I'm just happy they do it. So,
yeah,
but awesome. I hear the things of like,
sorry, go ahead.
Sorry. No, it's like, but we help anything from, we've done brain traumas. We've done getting people out of domestic violence situations, getting them into their own homes and paying their rent, get them squared away. We've done getting people new teeth, getting, just financial assistance across the board, make people feel more confident about themselves in life. We've done heart transplant. We've done all sorts of stuff.
Wow.
Yeah, we've done it all.
Wow.
And we're just like taking care of during like what we're going through right now. Like this has been the most challenging year for us because we took on Maui as a bit, last year, and everybody forgot about Maui. We did not. We just finished funding the last applicants last month. Like we just never forgot. We never quit. Everybody was like, move on to the next after like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
We did not. And so then we did derecho, which was, 120 mile an hour winds whipping through the city with no notice. And then we had barrel. And then now we're into Helene and the next one that's coming up. I forgot what its name is. Milton, yeah, which is going to be devastating. And so I just, we set up $1 million to say that that's our budget for the year. We broke that in July. I mean, we've already given $1 million away. Barrel hadn't even come through. And so now we've got 3 storms that we got. And so it's like, now we have to change how we fund a little bit, where it's like, okay, well, if you're a single employee, this is the number. If you have a family, this is the number, because we can't really do case by case by case the way we do, because like I already know that for Helene, we have 1,400 applications in right now, and it's only going to grow when people get power, and so it's and with Milton, I'm terrified. You're looking at a Cat 4 coming through state of Texas or state of Florida, just right across that thing. It's going to be devastating. And so, when they said hurricane season was over for us, I was like, we're good. And then all of a sudden I look and I'm like, oh man, here we go. And so like the team's really on edge, but we'll get it done.
It just seems like there are so many natural disasters that you're responding to. Did you think when you started Southern Smoke that so much of the work that you did would be responding to hurricanes and storms, as opposed to, there are so many challenges for hospitality workers aside from surviving natural disasters. What is that like for you?
It's tricky, and it's really kind of terrifying in ways, because traditionally, like, we do twice as much than what FEMA does, right? If you lost your entire home in Maui, they give you $750. Yeah, and we're doing $1,500. So, like, because we looked at the cost of living in Maui, we're like, well, this is what it costs to live for a month, or pay rent for a month. And so, when you start thinking about that, no knock on FEMA, but they're doing what they can, but everybody's trying to do what they can. And I didn't think we'd get into like storm relief, right? My goal forever was like, hey man, let's just make sure that people can pay their bills. Mm-hmm. But if you don't have a home, how do you pay your bills? If you don't have a job because your restaurant's without power for 6 or 7 days, how do you pay your bills? Even if your house is okay. So like, everybody works paycheck to paycheck for the most part. Very few are lucky enough to be like, I got a little backstock. That just doesn't happen in the food and beverage industry. So we have to make sure that like we're doing the best that we can to even put money in, like just get it covered, get people a little bit of relief, because there's just not.
Do you get into conversations about sort of the systemic issues behind why hospitality workers don't have a backstop, or how we might, as a community, go about solving how to pay hospitality workers more or a living wage so that they don't need as much assistance from places like Southern Smoke?
Right now we've just been focusing on natural disasters and haven't been able to figure out that part of it. I'm going to let everybody else figure that one out, because that's a state-to-state thing. And I guess the whole conversation with that goes back to everybody. I agree. I would want every industry, or every industry, I don't give a shit if it's food and beverage or not, but every industry to have livable wages. But when that happens, you have to pay a livable cost, right? Mm-hmm. And people are like, it should be cheap. And it's like, it's not cheap, man. Like, you can just sit here in Texas and be like, why is brisket so much? It's because you freaking like it. And guess what? There's only 2 per cow, and it went up in price because everybody wants it, and that's just that's how it works, and it's like, and so as long as people can understand that, like, when you say, hey, I want this, hey, we're going to do this, that there is a cost associated to that everybody's going to pay into.
Yep.
Because restaurants forever are like, man, costs are high, labor's high, but I don't want to raise my prices. And so that's why people are closing, because they can't afford to do it, because the restaurants themselves don't want to raise the price. And it's like, you can't take the hickey for everybody, man. You can't take that punch in the throat. You have to be able to say, what was $12 is now $15. And it's okay. Like, and
Right.
They're like, but they're going to go get it someplace else cheaper. I'm like, it all comes back to hospitality, man. It all comes back to how you treat people and how you explain to. If you're very honest with people, they're okay with it, you know?
Mm.
And if you have a good
Yeah.
product, they're okay with it. And so, but it's just one of those things, like, we as an industry can't just say, hey, we want to sell cheap stuff, because it's not that way. It's just not. It can't be.
Amen to that. Amen to that. It seems like there's a new roadmap for leadership excellence in hospitality. And part of that, I think, is this, kind of to be civically minded, community oriented, right? Or somehow have like skin in the game in a real and meaningful way within your own community. And in my mind, like a lot of the reasons for that are because of examples of what you're doing with Southern Smoke. What has it been like to infect and like influence your own team with that mission? Like, obviously, like it's resonating with folks that work with you, and why is that?
Because we have to make the decision that if there's going to be a change, we have to do it together, right? And so we just had festival this past weekend. I had 70 chefs or 70 restaurants from around the country here, 4,000 people on Saturday. We raised $1.5 million on Saturday. But it was having the conversation with each one of these restaurateurs and each one of these chefs and all the beverage folks about how you just like, we have to be the change. We are the people that have to take care of our communities no matter what. And, forever, and I hate to say it, but like, as a business owner, you get asked, and we all know this, by every organization for everything under the sun. And quite frankly, we have to figure out, man, we spend our lives taking care of everybody, but who's going to take care of us? At the end of the day, it has to be us. We have to take care of each other. And so, like, all of these, I only do, even back with the restaurants, I would only do a certain amount of donations for everything else. But like, there's got to be some kind of understanding of where this money's going for, and do the due diligence of looking to see like how much of that dollar is going back to where it needs to. Is this a feel good, or is this like an actual good? And so like figuring those things out, like I don't need to do something for like, I don't know, the Dog Walkers Association of whatever county, or this little league that's in the highest, concentration of cash flow in the country. Like, why am I doing this? Like, that's can be sustainable by somebody else. Restaurants don't need to do that. They need to focus on what's right for them, and maybe not think that by just giving gift cards out all the time that's doing good, because it's not, and it's feeding the fire of everybody else that just can ask you whatever. I mean, how many letters I got, I was like, this will be good for your business. And I'm like, we're regulars. And I'm looking up, I'm like, you've never been in here. Like, what am I doing? Focus on what you need to focus on. Be a part of your community. If it's not helping your team, because you know what? When the team's got to go back and they have to redeem all those gift cards and those dinners, and they're like, why are we doing this? Is it affecting us? Is it affecting like us as a human being? Like, and so like, that's kind of where I went with that. I was like, I'm only going to do stuff for Southern Smoke because my team is going to feel better about what they're doing when they know that auction item went for this and they are funding back into themselves. And so I shouldn't say like, hey, just quit doing stuff for everybody that just wants a handout or needs something for an auction item, and they're just calling restaurants randomly. Do stuff that matters to you. Doesn't have to be Southern Smoke, but do stuff that matters to you, that makes an impact in your community for the people and the things that you want to make an impact in. And I think that your staff will follow you for that. And that makes more sense to me. Just personally.
I think it does make sense to have a purpose and a passion that you're concentrating on and following, as opposed to spreading yourself or your resources really thinly across the board. I think that's something that Catherine Miller, who wrote At the Table, which is a guide to chef's advocacy. She talks about that in her book about sort of figuring out what's really important to you and your restaurant as the leader, and then following that as your guide, as opposed to getting 10 requests and saying yes to all of them.
Yeah. Restaurants all the time try to be everything for everybody. You can't, man. Just be enough for your own people, right? Be there for them. Be there for your team. Be there for them. Be the leader that they need to see. That's like, oh man, these people are doing it the right way for the right reasons. And that's all I can ask, right? And I'm not even asking that. I just want people to be that for their own families and their own teams. Because that is at the root of it, hospitality. Right.
Yep.
That goes back to me saying hospitality starts internally first. Right. And it starts with your team. It starts with the people that you work with, the valet drivers, the delivery drivers. How are you treating them? How are you treating, like, that's the core of it. Because if you can't get that right, don't even go consumer facing. Just don't.
Yep. So tell me about how you're feeling about the future of Southern Smoke. Like, what are some key initiatives for the next couple of years, and how are you guys creating strategy to be able to deliver this continued value to the hospitality industry?
So I think we'll continue what we're doing, right? I want to grow the mental health care program. I want to continue to do funding for emergency relief. I'd like to stop doing, natural disaster response, but, I think that's not going to stop. I think that we're just going to continue to grow. We're going to figure out things to do. And as far as I want mental health care in all 50 states at some point. And then when we get close to that, I want to start talking free legal counsel. Because I think that's where a lot of the other, inherent problems come in, is like people don't read lease negotiations. They don't read contract negotiations. They don't read a lot of these things. They just sign stuff and I can make it happen. And then all of a sudden you don't have a restaurant because you couldn't make that nut, you couldn't make that spot. You thought you could do that, or the lease, because anything that gets handed to a restaurant person has been looked at by 5 attorneys, and it's all looked at by the other person's eye. Right. Yeah. And it's, and understanding how those things work is very prudent to making the financial success that you need to have, whether it's how much per square footage are we paying? This doesn't seem right, but there's all these little hidden things in there that make it really so it's not right, And so what happens if you do get shut down for a week or a month or however long pandemic was, right? I think we all learned a lot. We were all oh, we'll get taken care of. Our landlords, no, they aren't. Right. And some will, some won't, but most of them are looking out for themselves because they have a business to run too. And so I think having free legal counsel would be amazing, whether it be through immigration law, tax law, any of it. Makes more people more a little bit financial secure. I didn't used to look at contracts. I didn't used to look at that much stuff. I just had belief. Now, I don't do anything without having somebody look at it. Even my attorney's like, man, why do you keep sending me this? I was like, because you got mad at me when I didn't. And so now I am. It's this is basically for you to get gas today. I'm like, yeah, that's right. I need it, not really, but I'm saying it's I will send him everything just because, look, man, I'm not doing that anymore. And I think that's a lot of the problems I think that goes back to some of the systemic issues, right? I think mental health care, the way to talk to people, hospitality things, financial aspect of how do I make sure my business is running right when I sign these deals? Is it protecting me or is it protecting everybody else? And then I think understanding the exit plan, I'd love to get down that path too. Is how do you understand where you're going to be? Because you can ask almost every restaurateur and every chef, man, how are you getting out of this? You're going to build this so big. How are you getting out of that? I guess I'll die doing it. I'm like, what kind of shit is that, man?
Wrong answer.
What kind of, what is that? You want to build it, but what are you going to do with it? And I think that if I would have known that when I was 25, where I needed to be, I probably would have done things a little bit differently and made it scalable to somebody else that would want to buy it and let them run with it. But, I think as a young chef, we're all I got to say my voice. Well, you know what? Not everybody wants to hear your voice, not across the country. So how do you build it to sell, or how do you build it to be able to live the end of your life the way you want to do it? Because nobody thinks about that.
There's so many parts of that you're touching that I think we're aiming to help with at Magic. I think at Magic, it feels like we sort of have this chance to redefine what success looks like. And our goal is to provide tools to the hospitality industry to help make people's businesses more sustainable and profitable long term, right? I just think that these tools don't exist for a lot of restaurant owners. And our goal is to help get access or help give and share the knowledge that we and other experts in the industry have learned so that other people can make better decisions that will help them. It's so hard. I mean, I think sometimes I feel like our slogan at Magic should be running a restaurant is really freaking hard. We want to help, because it's just so hard. And long-term planning, leases, lawyers, paying your staff, food costs, labor. I mean, it's nuts if you don't have support. And so I think Matt and I really identify with sort of the desire to help people make better decisions so that they can have profitable businesses long-term.
Well, I wish that when people got into saying, okay, I'm going to fundraise for a restaurant, right? And I love an entrepreneur. I love it. Do it for the right reasons, but also understand that you don't need plateware that's, $45 a plate. Get the stuff that's $35 a plate if you want something real fancy, and save that money to actually hire a fucking attorney. Right? Sorry about my language. So I think that people will go into it and say, if you have a piece of pie, let's just call that pie $1 million, right? Because that's not even close enough to open a restaurant. But we'll just say $1 million. You should have, everybody puts X amount to this, X amount to build out, X amount to uniforms, X amount to, how we're going to open the restaurant, do a free 3 nights or whatever. You know what? You need 20, 25% of that to actually go to attorneys, right? You need to be covered. Before you even start, fundraising needs to cover those attorneys. And everybody's like, but I need expensive chairs. No, you don't. You need comfortable chairs, right? You need a place where someone can put their butt for 2 hours and feel good about it and then come back and want to do it again. But you need to make sure that you are so legally covered that you go, if things happen, you're okay with it.
Yeah.
I
totally,
And nobody does that. Nobody. Yeah. Very few, I should say.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't do it. I wish I would have. I had a friend look at it and be like, or I had the people that were asking me to sign, I had their attorneys look at it. What are we talking about here?
Right. Exactly.
Right. You need your own attorneys, right, that are going to have your best interests in mind. Yeah.
Oh, you have to go into, and it's every single contract needs to go into, especially when you get into the partnerships, because I talk to friends that have we've got 4 partners. I'm like, okay, did you guys sign basically a divorce decree?
Yeah,
right, freaking prenup.
What's the
because
out?
That's
right?
It's the out, right? It's the out, because one of those partners at some point is going to be like, hey man, I'm going to be done. Okay, well who's taking up that role now? Who's doing all of these things? So that is, you have to go into understanding how the end is before you can get to the beginning.
Totally. I'm curious to hear from you about some examples of ways that you think that business owners, operators, and workers can start to engage in their own communities so that they can give back, right? How do we increase the access and remove the barriers of entry for people, who want to find ways to either support a foundation like Southern Smoke or maybe even create their own nonprofit?
Well, I always say that creating a nonprofit is everybody wants to, right? A lot of people want to. It's way harder than you ever thought it would be. And quite frankly, if everybody starts nonprofit, then money for actually, for everybody doing good work kind of just dwindles down, right? We're all swimming in the same pool. And once you put too many people in the pool, there's no water, And so, find something you align with, find something you believe in and stick to that, right? I would suggest that, like, unless you really have a core focus of a nonprofit, you want to start one and you're ready to do the work, you're ready to deal with all the board members, you're ready to deal with everything, like, hold up, right?
Yeah.
But maybe find something that you believe in and just do your fundraising for that. I wouldn't say do 5 different ones, but focus on like 1 or 2 that make an impact in your community that you can believe in, and stick to those things. And then maybe you can help that small nonprofit that you look at and say, and it also has to make sense, right? Because again, it goes back to your staff. If you're choosing to do this, does your staff believe in it too? Right? Because if they're always like, why do we keep giving money to like this? And that's fine, right? But I'm always about giving money and doing whatever. But make sure that your staff can feel good about what you're doing. And maybe you have a conversation with your staff. Hey, man, we want to start doing some charitable stuff. What is it going to be? This one, or this one? And see, and lay it all out for your staff. Lay out like how much money they're spending. Like, cause I think that when people get down into it, they start looking and they're like, this seems like a good organization. Then all of a sudden you realize that 30% of every dollar is what goes to that because there's so much overhead. I think you need to look at that a little bit closer, right? How far is the dollar that you're willing to give up, right? Because from a small restaurant or a small business owner, giving money is hard, right? And make sure that when you do, that money goes to the right place, right? And so do the due diligence on some of these things. Just don't write checks. Don't just give gift cards. Like, make sure you're doing it the right way because then your staff can feel more like you're actually making an impact. So
I do think Catherine Miller's is fantastic. I don't want to sort of belabor her wonderfulness and advocacy, but she does talk about not starting your own nonprofit. Like, find a nonprofit that is doing something that you like and that you support, and find out what work they've already done. Because a lot of the work when you start your own nonprofit is just duplicating work that other people have spent time and energy doing. So go out and figure out what work those people have already done, and then jump on their bandwagon and help them get farther, down the road to whatever you're trying to help with or solve. Because so much of that work, you don't double the work, So
we've had many, her and I and Lindsay have had many conversations about that. And I think we're all in agreement on that because you have to be able to, like, you can't dilute the waters, right? I mean, you can if it's very niche, but like, if you're like, what? Because we find ourselves at this point kind of absorbing other nonprofits. We just did this. I mean, we did this with the one in South Carolina that was just like, they were doing so good and it was very mission aligned. And they're like, look, you are just doing it in a different way, in a much bigger way. Can we just kind of join up with you? And it was like, yeah, of course. And like, so we went through the due diligence and, we'll take on other organizations like that. That makes sense, right? But like, when you start a nonprofit, you're in it for the long haul. Because there's a lot of paperwork and there's a lot of stuff that happens. Yeah. And so you have to be in it for the long haul. You can't just do it and be like, oh, we're going to do this for a couple. No, man, you got to, it's kind of like, if you're starting it, you need to be there for the community for forever, as long as you possibly can, right? I'm not saying forever, but so yeah, you need to find, where do you want to attach your horse to? Because we can all run faster together. That's the biggest statement, right? You can, if you're gonna get a pony and just ride a 1-horse pony, it's going the 20-horse team is gone, and so like they're just rolling and they're getting it done. So I'll take some more horses.
All right, so
I'm worried about the storm. So
I know. I think everybody's worried about the storms. And I hope that you get the chance, or I hope that some of the natural disasters subside so you can get some bandwidth to focus on the things that you really want to be focusing on. But in the moment, it feels like the immediate needs will always supersede anything else. What is the first thing that you do when you wake up in the morning?
Brush my teeth, give my wife a kiss.
Nice.
Oh, I love that.
Not the other way around. I try never to do the other way around.
I like that. Yeah. One, two.
I wake up, I get out of bed, and I look to see that my cats are laying with Lindsay. That makes me happy, and then I proceed.
That's sweet. How many cats do you have?
2. Beans and Rosie.
Oh my gosh, those are such cute names.
I'm a big old cat dad, man. We got We got two from the same litter, and they could care less about us most of the time, but it's all right.
That's the best part about cats.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What is your guilty pleasure for $20 or less?
You know what? Can I say it this way? Because I asked somebody that. I asked that question to Yotam Adeligi once, and he said, I don't look at anything as a guilty pleasure. I just look at it as a pleasure, and I shouldn't feel guilty for doing it.
I love that.
And I was like, damn.
Yeah.
I just justified every General Tso's chicken I've ever had. But yeah, he said that, and I was just like,
I love it.
Great.
I love it. All right. So what is it? It could be anything.
I don't know. I think it goes back to General Tso's. A good egg roll, man, to get me every time.
A good egg roll. Oh,
Good
dude, I'm
egg
with you
roll.
on that 100%.
That's nice.
Cabbage based,
All right.
though. I don't want stuff that cabbage.
Cabbage.
All right.
Yeah.
You
the
can
real
say
thing.
pork, but it just got to kind of look at the pork as it's getting put into the egg roll, you know?
Just glance it. Yeah.
Just glance. Looky pork. Go. You know?
All right. The next three are on kind of some of the pillars of magic. So the first one's on people. Who is the one person that you've hired that has transformed your business?
My wife.
Mm.
I didn't hire her, but she now works for the foundation, but she just transforms my life on a daily basis. So I'm a lucky human being that I have somebody that's always looking out to make sure that I can be the best human I can be.
Lindsay is a special person.
She is. And she likes me, so it works out.
What is the one? Okay, wait, I need to actually look at the question because I'll say, okay, what's the most successful marketing decision you've made for your business?
The power of no. Right? Somebody asked me, like, at a birthday last month or something like that. Well, last month, but they asked me and they said, what are you looking forward to this year? And I said, they said, what did you learn about last year? I said, what I learned last year was to listen to everything and understand that not everything is for me. And then they said, what's this year? And I said, closing the loop on all the things that don't matter as much to me and clearing them off my plate. And not every decision, you need to do. You don't need to do everything. Right? There's something about that. What makes you actually more marketable is when you don't do everything.
The power of no.
Yeah.
All right. So the last
the
one.
power of limiting yourself too. Like, don't do shit just to do it. Right?
Say that again. The power of what?
It's understanding you. Don't do stuff just to do stuff. Right?
Yep. 100%. All right. The last one's on technically software, but it could be anything. What is the one tool that you use every day?
You ready for this? I do not own a computer. So I really can't answer that question.
No, it can be anything. Is there a tool that you use, like a pocket knife or, anything?
Oh, I know you said technology. I was like, well, I don't own a computer. I decided that I bought one years ago and I gave it away because I learned, like, be good at what you're good at. Don't fake the other shit.
Awesome.
So
any tool,
I think just
any tool.
The power of my voice. And what I say things like, it's like if you can articulate the way that you feel and articulate the way that you need to be heard, it's very powerful and people will listen. Right? I can stand on a stage, and I did it this weekend, talk to 2,000 people, 3,000 people, and just give them orders of, like, be the kindness in your community, learn people, be a good, like, if they can take that and put it tomorrow morning, or they can wake up and, man, remember what Chris said up on stage about, that's power. That is true. Like, that's how you get up every day. It's like, no, when you say things, it means something.
That's an excellent tool. It's an excellent tool to be able to learn how to use properly.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
Yeah, but you can also learn how to use it really negatively. And that is not power.
Mm-hmm.
That is not
Mm-hmm.
good. So,
Yep.
what was you doing for good?
Well, speaking of
That's my
voices,
pocket knife.
I like it. I like it, man. I like it. Speaking of voices, it has been amazing to hear your voice and to see you. You are one of my favorite people, and I miss seeing you, and I miss cooking with you.
I did
and
too.
Man, we gotta find a way to make that happen soon. But it's been amazing to talk with you and hear everything about Southern Smoke. We'd love to have you back on at some point. And just congratulations on all the good work you're doing. It's so meaningful. And I certainly am so grateful for you and for all the energy that you put into our industry. So thanks.
Thank you, my friend. Carol, thank you, my friend.
It's really nice to meet you, Chef.